according to a recent study done by the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finance, they found that the median US savings rate was just $5,300. Bank Rate found in a study that only 4 in 10 Americans, or approximately 40% of Americans, are able to afford a $1,000 emergency expense. These would be things like your car breaking down, emergency medical expenses, refrigerator. Now, most of us know it's important to save money and that you need to save money so you can begin investing and building financial freedom for yourself down the road. However, saving money becomes really, really challenging when prices of goods continue to increase, we have rising inflation, and that wages seem to be pretty stagnant over the years. When comparing the purchasing power of a dollar from 1970 to 2022, $1 in 1970 is the same purchasing power as $7.53 today. So what I want to do is go over 9 different saving strategies that I use that really help me save a lot of money really fast. These are the same strategies that allowed me to save $9,000 while only making $19,000 my first year in LA, and eventually saving $100,000 in just over 4 years on a lower income, which then allowed me to begin investing in real estate, creating passive income, and creating financial freedom for myself. Tip number 1, identify your savings target and break it down. If I were to ask you what is your savings goal this year, what would you say? Is it $1,000? $5,000? Is it $10,000? Let's say that your savings goal is $9,000 this year. Now, for many of you watching this video, the idea of saving $9,000 probably sounds pretty crazy. But what if I were to tell you the savings goal is just $750 a month? Sounds a little bit easier than $9,000 a year. What if I were to tell you that the savings goal is $24.66 a day? The thing is that every one of these scenarios comes out to $9,000 a year. So while saving $9,000 in a year may seem overwhelming, the idea of saving $24.66 a day doesn't seem as overwhelming. The key to achieving any goal is to break it down into small actionable chunks. This way you get rid of the overwhelm and it seems more realistic. I use this exact same strategy to help myself earn over $100,000 a year. Now at the time I thought $100,000 a year seemed astronomical because I was making maybe $40,000, $50,000 at this point. But if you take $100,000 divide by 52 weeks out of the year, that comes out to $1,923 a week. I then took this $1,923 and divided by 6 working days out of the week, which came out to $320 a day. At this point, $320 a day, even though it still is a decent amount of money, it's a lot less overwhelming than thinking about how to make $100,000 a year. Tip number 2, use the 48-hour rule. One of the reasons why it's really hard to save money is because you have all kinds of brain chemistry that is preventing you from being able to save money. And these brain chemicals are actually linked to impulse spending and buying things that aren't absolutely necessary. So the first hormone is dopamine, and this is known as the feel-good hormone. And this hormone is responsible for making you feel really good about the anticipation of something. The second hormone is endorphins, and this is the hormone that is responsible for feeling of well-being and pleasure. The third hormone is serotonin, and this is the hormone that regulates mood and happiness and also affects your emotional decision-making skills. And the fourth one is adrenaline. This hormone is responsible for giving that feeling of rush and excitement. So we have to understand that these 4 brain chemicals are actually causing you to have more impulse spending and making you buy things that you don't absolutely have to have. But there is a way of working around this, so let's talk about that. The 48-hour rule states that before you make any purchase that isn't absolutely necessary for survival, you must wait at least 48 hours before actually making the purchase. Now, the reason this is so important is because by waiting 48 hours, this gives your brain chemicals enough time to relax and settle, and you can make a more conscious decision. Most of the time when we want to buy something, it's not the actual item that's really giving us that sense of pleasure and rush, it's the anticipation of buying that particular item. Tip number 3, set up and automate a wealth tax. One of the challenges with saving money is that humans have this natural need for immediate satisfaction. And when we're faced with 2 different decisions of something now versus something later, we typically go for the thing that gives us the pleasure in the immediate moment. This is known as present bias. And this is why it becomes so hard to save money for retirement, for a down payment on a home, or even large purchases or expenses like a wedding. But psychologists have found there is a way to overcome that, and that is through automation. And that is because automation strips our ability of having to choose between now or doing something later. One of the strategies that I used to really help me save a lot of money was by creating a wealth tax and automating it. And the idea of the wealth tax was to tax myself for my future wealthy self and automatically putting it into an account that I couldn't access easily. Now, how much you tax yourself is really up to you, but let's look at this example. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median income is $51,480. If you were to tax yourself just 10% and have it automatically deposited into a bank account, you would have $5,200 by the end of the year alone. That is over halfway towards your $9,000 savings goal. Now, to do this, it's important to have a really good budget. I'll leave some links below in the description box to a video that will help you with budgeting. Tip number 4, how much time does it cost? One of the things that really helped me start to save a lot of money and avoid purchasing things that I didn't absolutely have to have was thinking about things relative to time. You see, it's really easy to drop $50 or $100 on something because overall we don't feel like that's a huge purchase. But when we look at it in relationship to time, it takes on a much different effect. According to this study, the median wage per hour was $16.32 in 2020. Let's say that you're wanting to make a $100 purchase. The $100 itself doesn't seem like a lot, but when you consider the fact that you have to spend over 6 hours of your time to buy this item, it takes on a much different effect. 6 hours is almost a whole working day. So the real question becomes, do I want to work an entire day for this item or not? Tip number 5, would you rather get paid? So another strategy that I use to avoid unnecessary purchases was asking myself, would I rather get paid for this item? Listen, we've all been there. Perhaps you walked into the Apple store and saw the newest iPhone that just got released, and now all those brain chemicals are kicking in, and it's making you want to buy this item. And let's say that the new iPhone costs you $1,100. If someone were to come up to you and say, hey, I will give you $1,100 to not buy this item, would you take them up on that offer? If you would take them up on that offer, then you definitely do not need to make this purchase. Now, while someone's not actually giving you money, the fact that you didn't spend the money still means that you are essentially paying yourself to not buy the item. This is a fantastic way for helping avoid unnecessary purchases. And that is because when we can see the reward for not buying an item, it helps us with the decision-making process. Tip number 6, get a spending buddy. When I say spending buddy, I don't mean find that friend to go out and YOLO, making it rain, living that life of ultra luxury and dropping that cash. What I'm talking about is finding an accountability partner and using what I call the 1% rule. The 1% rule is just a rule that helps control impulse spending. If you are going to make a purchase that is larger than 1% of your gross annual income, you need to contact your accountability partner first. When you call your accountability partner, you have to explain to them why you want to make this purchase and why this is necessary. If your accountability partner gives you the approval to make the purchase, you then have to wait 48 hours where you can actually make the purchase. This does 2 things. Number 1, it helps you talk through the situation, giving you a little bit more clarity. And number 2, it makes you wait 48 hours to let those brain chemicals die down. Now, the key here is to find an accountability partner that has your best interest at heart, someone that knows that you're trying to save money, and someone that's going to push you to not make purchases that aren't 100% necessary. Tip number 7, determine the opportunity cost. One of the things I found that really helped me overcome that present bias is look at what's called the missed opportunity costs. Let me explain. Let's say you just walked into the Apple store and that bright new shiny iPhone that's $1,100 is shining right in your face, asking you to make that purchase. What we have to understand is that that $1,100 purchase is not just $1,100. It's actually costing you a lot more in the future. Let's say that instead of buying this $1,100 iPhone, we took that $1,100 and put it into an S&P 500 index fund that earned an average of a 10% return over 30 years. Without adding a single dollar extra to this fund, you would have $22,000 in 30 years. So the real question becomes, do I want this $1,100 iPhone, or would I rather have $22,000 in the future? This is a great way of making sure that you only buy things that are 100% absolutely necessary. Tip number 8, create a cash-only diet. In a 2008 paper in a Journal of Experimental Psychology, researchers found that there is a vast difference in how much people spend based on how they make the purchase. They found that you're a lot more likely to overspend on things when you use credit cards. And that is because it separates the time from when you actually make the purchase to when you actually have to pay for the item. In addition, it also mixes all of your different purchases together, so it's harder to equate where your bills are coming from. In this particular study, they had 2 different groups of people throw a Thanksgiving party and purchase food. They found that those who used credit cards on average spent $175 versus those who used cash only spent $145. Researchers also found that those who used credit cards were more likely to purchase unhealthy items, and something that I found really interesting was that those who used cash to pay for something actually had a better relationship with the item that they actually purchased. So a major suggestion I have is to always pay for things in cash. Tip number 9, don't make a budget. Wait a second, you're saying to not make a budget? Isn't the whole point of making a budget so I can actually save money? How am I gonna save money if I don't make a budget? It's not that you can't make a budget. In fact, I talk about the importance of budgeting all the time on my channel, and I actually provide a lot of good budgeting techniques. But the reason I say not to make a budget is because a lot of times for most people is that it's not the issue of budgeting as it is an issue of income. You see, for a lot of people watching this video, you may actually have a pretty strong budget and you may not be spending that much money on that many different things. And even though you probably could cut out that $5 Starbucks coffee, the amount of pleasure and joy that it gives you is really hard to take away. So my suggestion is, instead of trying to cut out that $5 pleasure, what you need to be doing is trying to figure out, how can I make more money? What really helped amplify my savings rate was going from $19,000 a year income to eventually earning well over the 6-figure mark. When I was able to do this and stay tight on what I spent, my savings rate skyrocketed. I was able to invest that money and create lots of passive income. This in turn helped me create financial freedom for myself and really allowed me to magnify my wealth building. My suggestion is spend more time trying to figure out how to make a couple $100 extra bucks a week or doubling your income this year. Now, I talk a lot on my channel about side incomes. I talk a lot about how to make extra money through side hustles, whether it's creating your own service-based business. There's different types of apps and websites where you can earn extra money. But the goal is to start working on making more money. In addition to side hustles or creating your own business, you could even work on decluttering your space. If you look around you, there's probably a lot of items in your room around your house that you don't use. And you could either sell these items on places like Craigslist, Amazon, Facebook Marketplace, or you can even rent out some of your items on things like Spinlister, where you can actually rent out your bicycle to neighbors. There are websites like Fat Llama that allow you to rent out pretty much any item that you have to your neighbor. You could use apps like Airbnb to rent out a room in your house or your apartment. You could do Turo, where you rent out your car. There are an endless amount of ways to begin earning more money. And in fact, I would be spending most of my time learning how to earn more money as opposed to trying to figure out how to nickel and dime that extra $5 out of my budget. Those are some of the strategies that really helped me go from not saving any money to saving well over $100,000 in just over 4 years. It then allowed me to invest in rental properties, other investments, create passive income. If this video gave you some value, please be sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, that little notification bell for more videos on personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, living life on your terms. Let's get out there and let's build that dream.